Hey, everybody, and good evening. Thanks for taking the time to join in. It's Friday, and it's always have to look, January 19th. And here in East Tennessee, we've been dealing with the most snow we've seen since about 1996. It started Sunday night, and we resulted in about 8 inches, seemed to be the average. And since then, we have had temperatures that have been down into the single digits overnight, sometimes even down around zero, which means that this snow is still here almost a week later. That's very unusual for us. Normally, we will have snow, and within a day or so, it'll be melted. We also won't have this much at one time. But we do get it, about once a decade, it'll come through or so. So it's disrupted a lot of routines for a lot of people. Hasn't messed up us too much, other than the fact that I'm just aggravated from being kind of stuck in the house quite a bit. I'll get into more of that here in a little while, but I got a few housekeeping notes first. The Telegram group has been up and running for a couple of weeks now, and I'm going to drop the invite link right there into the notes or into the chat for you guys. I'll throw it in the notes as well. We've got about 50 people over there, just been kind of chatting about whatever problems we feel like solving at the moment or discussing. I try to keep folks updated about what we're up to here on the farm. And if you were in the group and you go to check it and suddenly realize that you're not, let me know. Because I guess my phone did an update or Telegram updated, but something weird happened and suddenly half the people who were in the group were gone. And, I know people leave groups if they decide that that's not, something they want to do, but half was a little bit weird. So I think we've gone back and found most everybody since then, but if you're one of those, let me know. One of the cool things that I did get hooked up with back in the fall, my friend Gretchen with Five Stones Farm here in Corryton, Tennessee, started a book club. And right now we're reading Joel Salatin's Homesteading Tsunami, which is Joel's observation over the past 4 years or so of what has led to so many people getting back to the land and getting back to a more way of living that's more in touch with natural systems. And it's an excellent book. I got it early on, and then I kind of just read it cover to cover before the book club actually started. So I'm going back and I'm revisiting these chapters as we get together and talk about it. So there's we're meeting via Zoom, and then there's also in-person meetings. And I'm not sure how many of those I'm going to be able to make yet because it kind of clashes with my training time. So we'll just have to see about that. But it's been a lot of fun. So in the last meeting, the first one, I got to talk with some folks from, I want to say, Wisconsin, Michigan, and maybe somebody else here in the South. But it was kind of neat to get perspectives from all kinds of folks. We also had our first meeting with the folks who are putting together the East Tennessee Homestead Alliance. That was really well attended. We had about 100 people. We had it at the reserve at Bluebird Hill, which not to be confused with Bluebird Hill Homestead, our place. The reserve at Bluebird Hill is a 75-acre horse farm, a venue on site that they use for hosting weddings and corporate parties and things like that, and us. So that was a really energetic crowd. Kind of got to meet up with folks who I know and see somewhat regularly, and then a bunch of new people too. I made some contacts on that. So just looking forward to building more relationships, maybe doing some design and consulting work with a few people who were interested in that. So that time. And if you're interested in that, just look up East Tennessee Homestead Alliance on Facebook. There's a page. You'll find a landing page for the website. There will be, or there is already, a mailing list for that. And if you are looking for any of those things and you can't find them, just get with me and I'll send you the correct links. Um, it was just like a 2 hour meeting, but it was packed full. And I'm all the way on board. We're already looking at doing a festival sometime in the summer. I think July or August were the times that were mentioned. So I know Sandy is looking for a venue that could hold up to 500 people. That's kind of the rough expected attendance at this point. So if you know of something, uh, reach out to her or reach out to me, and I'll get it passed along. We would like to keep it obviously in the East Tennessee area, somewhere around Lenore City, Loudoun, West Knox County, but we can stretch as we like to tell people. East Tennessee is kind of a big place, and we stretch from basically the valley here in Knoxville all the way up to the Appalachians. So please spread the word. This is a good thing. This is going to be good for everybody who's in this movement. Let's see. Oh, and there will be volunteers needed. So if you're interested in getting more into that network on the volunteering side, which tends to result in free or discounted admission to the events, is generally how these things work. Reach out. So, okay, farm update. It's been snowing, obviously. The total was about 8 inches. We've had a little bit of melt, like earlier today and part of yesterday. We got barely above freezing. And so it's melted down a little bit, but frankly, it's still no fun trying to get around. And then everything that has been packed down from either the four-wheeler or just trekking across and whatever, it's just completely just become this packed ice. And I have managed not to bust my ass yet, but I've got plenty of opportunity left. I try not to go out there unless I've got a walking stick. I've got pretty good gripping treads on my boots, but it's just everything's a slog. I'm sure y'all who are used to dealing with it know what I mean. But the difference is that down here we don't have the machinery. We have snow blowers. We don't have things like that. So like the paths I made between my shop and the house, I just dug out with a shovel. My brother did get out on the driveway with his skid steer and clear the snow off the driveway, which did help. And the more pavement we can get exposed to sunlight, the better. But there's still spots where, the ice had still up. And then insult to injury, we had ice come down last night. So everything that was clear no longer was. The animals have done fine. However, I check on them 3 or 4 times a day, change their water out, and they're all fine. The sheep are fine. We don't have any new lambs yet, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of only a matter of time. The 2 that look really ready to go are pretty much acting normal. I noticed that one wanted to lay down a little bit today, and then she'd get back up again when I came around, but everybody's eating well. So not last night, but we had one night where we went down to like 0. And I took them just a little bit of grain as it was getting dark so they could kind of have that. When they get a carb hit, it warms them up just like it does for us. So just a little bit here and there is okay to help kind of increase their body temperature a little bit. Primrose the donkey is doing well. I will admit that when we were having that snow and ice mix and she had some icicles hanging off of her, she wasn't in a good mood. But and it's kind of funny to learn what donkey body language looks like, but it became quite clear that she was not happy. But I kept check on her. I kind of checked like her, her undercoat. So she's got kind of her top coat and she's got this undercoat, and her undercoat was still dry and warm, and her body temperature was warm. So I just kind of figured, hey, you're an outside donkey. That's what you do. And she's been fine. And actually, really, what was interesting to see is that when they get a little bit of snow on their on their back and it doesn't melt, that's actually good because it means they're insulated. So because they've got that kind of airspace between those 2 coats that they have. So I worried a little bit because I'm new to having these animals, but after checking in with my sheep and donkey lady and sending her photos and some videos of everybody, she assured me that everybody was doing well and that they had a good shepherd. So that was a compliment, and that made me feel better because I'm just getting used to this stuff, and I want to do the right thing while also raising animals that are going to be adaptable and resilient in all kinds of weather conditions. The point is to have strong animals, not animals that need a whole bunch of extra interference. So they've been enjoying their hay roll and a little bit of grain here and there, and otherwise I could tell they're a little bit bored too because they can't find anything under the snow, and so they're looking up more. I noticed they're looking and they're pulling on like branches and vines and things that they wouldn't normally go after. On one of the days, I'm not sure which one at this point, kind of runs all together, but one of the days I went up close to their paddock, and there's kind of a stand of privet that's easy to get to. So I was in there with some pruners, and I just pruned off several armloads of privet branches and tossed that in their lot, and that was like a party. So I'll probably do that again tomorrow, and just to give them a little extra something to browse and to hold their attention, because I can tell they're just kind of bored and aggravated, and that is the case across the board for sure. I am very happy that years ago when my brother started growing hops up here, he installed some frost-free spigots for the water. So I am able to get to fresh water, and I just carry it a short distance in a couple of buckets and refill their water. And these spigots, if you're not familiar, have like a plunger that goes back down when you close the valve, and that plunger pushes all the water that's normally above ground back under the frost line, so that and even here in these single digit temps, it's working. So I'm happy about that, because that would have meant otherwise probably trying to do water, like get water in buckets inside my cabin and carry them back out, and that would have been kind of a pain in the butt. Speaking of plumbing, I thought that I had this place ready to rock and roll in terms of, sustain cold and keeping the water flowing. And as it turns out, I had this gap on the heat tape on the water line that comes back in from the heater. So the heater's mounted on the west end of the house. It comes back under. So there is no basement here. We are on skids, and we are sitting on a concrete pad. So this water just runs between the skids and comes up through our wall. Well, somewhere along the way, I had failed to apply heat tape to about a 2-foot section. I did not have long enough heat tape. And the section that was left untaped was pretty close to where it comes up through the wall. And I kind of sort of remember when I did this in the spring saying to myself, look, this is all the way under the house. We are nowhere near, the quote, the outside. But apparently when it gets this cold, it doesn't matter. So what I ended up doing is kind of took a little bit of time, both yesterday and the day before, was to unhook that line from the water heater and its PEX, fortunately. So I was able to just kind of pull it in. I went into my little crawl space access area that is big enough for me, and that's it. It's bigger than me. If you are more than 5'6" and 140 pounds, you're not going to fit under there. Kind of wedged myself under there, pulled it through, and I decided to sacrifice some of the heat tape that was outside going to the heater and apply it so that the entire pipe that I cannot normally access with a heat gun was covered in heat tape, and then the section that was outside without the heat tape, I can use the heat gun to defrost it need be. Because I have 3 different sections of heat tape running here. So 2 I want to say are about 30 feet long, and then I've got a 10-foot section for the short section where there's some exposed pipe where it comes out of the ground and then goes under the cabin. And that was another improvement I made. So where this pipe comes out of the main line, comes out of the ground and goes into the cabin, there was about a 3-foot section that I had just left on the ground, although it technically could have been buried. Well, guess what? It's buried now because I got out there with a trenching shovel and buried it. And it was insulated, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it's this cold. Buried it. I got it about 6 or 8 inches down. That's the most I could do because I just didn't have any slack in the line. Backfilled it, and actually so far that section has not frozen. So, and that has no heat tape on it whatsoever. So I am very hopeful that I have gotten this plumbing thing sorted out once and for all. We'll see. It was just kind of it's just one of those things, when you're working on something in spring and it's warm and it's nice, you think, well, we're not going to have temperatures like that. Or if we do, it's only going to be for a little bit. Well, no, this time we've had them. They've gotten that cold, and it's been sustained. We just haven't gotten above freezing. And these are just things that I have to think about going forward in my design work here and elsewhere, is we're going to go ahead and plan for this stuff from here on out, because apparently it's going to happen. And I have no way of knowing what the future brings or if it's going to continue to happen more frequently. So I'm just going to go ahead and plan for it, and not be crawling under my house when it's 15 degrees, trying to do work that you can't possibly do in gloves if you need any kind of dexterity, and coming up with all kinds of creative words and language while I'm at it. So I have said for a while that plumbing is my least favorite thing to do, but by necessity, I've had to get somewhat good at sorting a lot of this stuff out. Let's see. Notes. The only other damage that we've taken from this weather is that my gutters on the back of the cabin are coming off. There was an ice dam that formed, so that when this snow first started falling, it was more of a rain sleet mix. And then it froze, so it filled the gutters and could not drain off enough. It kind of flash froze. And then there's all this weight from the snow also undergoing like this very quick freeze and thaw cycle. And it's just kind of the brackets I had on these gutters, they're the kind where you hook it into the front of the gutter and then you just screw it into your fascia board. Well, that little hook on almost all these gutter brackets now is flat. It just bent it out. So the good news is I can pretty much fix this when there's snow on the ground and I can safely go up on a ladder. But this is another one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and make this better while I'm at it. And so when I did these gutters, back not long after we got the cabin, at this point, we were super tight on budget. Everything had been spent that we had allotted for, because it was 2020 and prices had jumped, obviously, for the cabin and for the solar system and all that. And so I initially wanted to have somebody come up here and run me 2 seamless gutters. But I just went down to Home Depot, got the longest ones I could, joined them together, sealed them, I thought, hung them, all that kind of stuff. I've had to adjust them a couple of times. And those seams, I think there's 3 on each side, have always leaked. And which kind of disappointing of gutters. I mean, they still do their job to an extent, but there's just places where they still always leak. So in the meantime, I will hook these gutters back up just so I have them in place. But when warm again, those are coming off. I'm going to sand and stain the fascia board, and I'm going to get, I've already kind of asked around a little bit. I'm going to find somebody who can just run me 2 32-foot long gutters and just come up here, run them off for me, drop them. I'll pay them. I'll hang them myself. And no more seams, just done. No more leaky seams. And I'll save the ones that we have on the cabin right now for other structures. For actually, I know exactly where they're going to go. They're going to go on the rabbit hutch, coop, whatever you want to call that thing, rabbit building, and probably maybe off the other side of the shop, maybe catch off both sides of the shop. So, or I should say all corners. I've only catch off 2 corners right now. So that was just kind of there just, when I realized what was happening, there was nothing I could do about it. I'm like, well, they're just gonna get pushed off. There's even some places where the actual metal on the lip of the gutters has torn. So that was kind of wild. So it's this whole week has mostly just been a case of just trying to stay on top of things, checking on the animals, trying to keep the dog from being really sad and aggravated because she's not out as much as she wants. And I do have a little bit of fresh design work that I accepted today after I spoke with the lady on the phone. So I've got a little bit of preparation to do for that. And everything else is just kind of paused. Our entire area is, I wouldn't say it's completely gridlocked, but they've got the main roads treated at this point, but there is no getting out of a lot of neighborhoods, especially the way we've had like snow, then ice, then it melted a little bit, iced again. And it's like compacted so much that the people who are posting on like Facebook and Nextdoor and everything, if somebody has a plow service or can run a skid steer or do whatever, or if you're just willing to work really hard with a snow shovel or a flathead shovel, there is money to be made. And I have thought about it. Howdy there, off-grid ping. Thank you for jumping in and saying a good evening. I hope you are less aggravated than I am with what the last several days have been like. But yeah, there's money to be made right now. I have thought about it. I have thought about getting the Jeep out of here. I actually did go down to the store after my brother scraped the driveway. Before this ice came back in, I got out and just went a mile down the road to see what the Kroger looked like. And it was about what you would expect. And it was the folks who were trying to get out of their neighborhoods. It's the same post over and over and over from here, probably the entire state. I mean, I haven't looked to see how wide this whole system went, but it's everywhere, and people are angry in a lot of cases. But it's not like we didn't have any warning that this was coming. Now we I think we had more snow for longer than we anticipated, but it really doesn't matter. For around here, normally if somebody says you're going to get 2 inches of snow, you've just got to go ahead and assume that it's going to be a mess. And, I see folks who are saying that they're out of food, that they're out of medication, I saw one lady who just needed her cigarettes. I guess that was considered an emergency. And, I realize how this may sound, but, I guess because I am so elated from kind of the mass populace, like my friend group, the kind of groups I operate in for the business and for the festivals and the events and the workshops and all that stuff that I go to that I'm interested in is so far removed from what is, quote, normal life that when I see these posts about people who ran out of food for their baby and stuff like that is just really perplexing to me, that it's not normal to just have some extra stuff. Or people who don't know, one, how to prevent their pipes from freezing, or don't know what to do if they do freeze. And I'm trying to hedge a little bit here because there was a time where I was ignorant about that kind of stuff too. So I'm trying not to just dunk on people for the sake of dunking, because that doesn't get anything done. And all it does is become a source of division. But I guess I am saying that I hope what happened will wake some people up so that they will say, hey, perhaps I should build a pantry. And if you'd like to know more about building a pantry, you need to get over on livingfreeintennessee.com, because Nicole will teach you better than anybody I know how to build your pantry on a budget in a way that makes sense, so you're not wasting your money, you're not wasting your food, you're driving yourself crazy. And, maybe they'll just think about stocking up a little bit, having an alternate source of heat. It seems like so far power loss hasn't really been an issue. There were some alerts put out by TVA asking people to conserve. Um, and as you know, hearing from my parents and my brother who are on the same property and they're on grid power, you know, we're on our own system up here. There hasn't been an issue. Like so far, everybody's had their power, but I guess it's just normal to me to just have some backups in place, and it's been normal so long that I guess I've just forgotten how most people get through their day. I don't even know if they think about, you know, the next week or whatever. There were people who couldn't figure out why our DoorDash or Uber Eats order wasn't getting accepted. And it's like, well, if you cannot get out of your driveway, and I've driven for DoorDash between like in my quiet season through the wintertime. And it's just like, you know, if you can't get out, how are they supposed to get to you? It was these, you know, these are not miracle workers. These are just regular people trying to earn a dollar like everybody else. So I guess I just got to say I'm a little perplexed, and I hope they do better. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to get too down on people, because normalcy bias is a very powerful thing. Off-grid ping says that there is a boil water notice here in the area. Hey, do they know what from? Is there, I mean, like, has there been like a break in contamination that way in a main line, or are the plants unable to do their regular treatment? That's kind of wild. And I've heard Jack say before that if you get issued a notice that you need to boil your water, that means that they've known about a problem for a little while. So I don't know maybe how long the little while is, but it kind of, you know, things move slowly in sometimes in some situations like that. So it's maybe good to assume that that could have been the case for a good bit. We are on a municipal line up here. That is one connection that we do have. So I do have some plans in the back of my mind for doing rainwater collection and treating it and all that good stuff, and using that, if not primary, at least as a backup, or I could at least, you know, have a fully isolated system, and then, you know, have the grid water for its convenience. But if it were to get cut off, which actually we've had that happen before, we've had a break happen in the line coming up the driveway that my brother repaired. So, you know, it can happen. It's just it's a system that's full of vulnerabilities. He said that lots of breaks, and the issue is said low to no pressure, and the supply is depleting. Yeah, I mean, depending on where you are, and it kind of goes for everybody. You know, it's probably a good idea to know what your main water source is. Like, is it from underground aquifers that are pumped? Is it from, in our case, it's from what they call a reservoir. We call them TVA lakes, but it would be the Tennessee River for the most part. There's the KUB's main treatment plant is down close to University of Tennessee. And that's, so that, well, and I should say that's for KUB. Out here, the West Knox utility district and that sort of thing. So it just kind of depends. There's bigger districts, there's smaller ones. Letty says that I'm sorry to hear about so many folks without food and such. Yeah, I mean, and she's up there in the Great White North, as it were. And I mean, it's true. We are really spoiled down here. This just doesn't happen very often. But I guess in my mind, people just had so much notice, and I guess they just assumed that it wouldn't really impact them. I can't really get my head around it. I don't know. I'm afraid that a lot of people just do not engage in too much critical thinking, or maybe they're just so wrapped up in their day to day, just the very small things of pay this bill and take care of this kid, and this other kid's sick, and I just had a fight with my husband or whatever the case may be, that they just didn't account for this. So, I'm just trying to have some space for folks to think things through. So I may, here in my hyper local neighborhood, just kind of keep an eye on stuff, and maybe just here and there drop some subtle but kind, hey, I learned about managing a pantry from my friend Nicole here, and just kind of put that out there, because I think we're in a time where I call it like the religion of progress, or the narrative of progress is so strong, even though there are so many signs that there is that some things are coming apart and not working as well as they used to. I'm sure I've mentioned it on some other podcasts and things before, but I'm a big fan of John Michael Greer's work, and he studies, the descent of civilizations. And I would argue that we're in the early stages of things breaking down. And I can see it in my own area, in my own lifetime. So I am 40 years old, and I see places that, for instance, the post office it's coming apart. Like, they just cannot keep up with the mail. And a lot of it's got to do because, they have all these contracts with Amazon. So it is not unusual for us to go sometimes, 10 or 12 days and just not receive any mail. And what's funny is that we're not actually in a rural area. I mean, it used to be, but it's not anymore. We're surrounded by suburbia. We are 10 miles outside of downtown Knoxville. And so it's, I've found out through a lady who posts on the Nextdoor app that, at least in this area, the post office is obligated to deliver Amazon packages first, and they pretty much have to for logistical reasons, because they take up so much room, and they have to get them out and off the trucks, or there's no room for anything else. So what's happened lately is I will usually get my packages, and yes, I still order. It's, I still use Amazon, especially for the business. It just makes things a ton easier. But I will usually get my packages in 3 or 4 or 5 days. But sometimes we'll just go days and days and days without any mail coming through. And like, mom mailed back a credit card payment, and it was late. She got charged a late fee because it didn't get to where it was supposed to go in time, even though she postmarked it in plenty of time normally. So, for instance, this is one thing, like, this is not working well. And, just simply believing that progress is good and progress is forever and it's a given is kind of a folly thing to my mind. Another thing I've noticed is, like, groundskeeping, especially for government or semi-government buildings, like the post office is another example. They went weeks and weeks and weeks in the summer with that grass never getting mowed. So I don't know, and I'm just talking about our local branch. I've seen this at libraries as well. Like, like the flower beds hadn't been weeded, no new mulch was put down, nothing like that. And because I'm a landscaper guy, I noticed these things. Trees not getting trimmed. The company that had the contract with our local utility suddenly out of business, bankruptcy. We didn't really know all about it. We just knew that we could not get a hold of anybody to come out here and trim around the lines on the easement. Dad had called and called and called, and he has all these different contacts because he's lived here forever. Because in our case, the easement from the road up to Dad's power pole is the utility's responsibility. We do not have to maintain that, although we may have to in the future, because it took so long to get somebody up there to things trimmed, to the point where, there was this hackberry tree up in the lines, and it was starting to ground out one of the lines, and my brother and my dad's power would flicker whenever it would be really windy. So we finally got that addressed a few weeks ago, and turned out that they had to contract temporarily with another company from Alabama to come up here and do their trimming. And then there's a new company that has the contract. And what's funny is that it's the exact same employees. It's the same people I see all around the area doing their thing. So this is to me where it's interesting, because we're going to get to see as things that are too big and too bloated and too complex, what falls apart and just goes away, and where do people come in and pick up the slack. Because if I had it, because I kind of have like this hustle and entrepreneurship mindset, if I had an answer for, moving mail around, if it wasn't tied up in this government bureaucracy, we'll probably see something happen like that one day. Like if the post office would hand the mail, let's say it makes it to their local branch, and would hand it to somebody who has volunteered to take all the mail to everybody on his whatever, in his subdivision or within a certain block range of his street or whatever, or everybody he works with at the office, and said, here's the mail for these individuals. I mean, it's probably going to come to something like that, because they have hiring signs out. They're paying, I don't really know how much. I think it's $18 an hour for the rural carriers, and nobody's biting. And I don't know why. I think it's because I'm kind of going back to what this lady who works for the post office was saying on Nextdoor several weeks ago. She said, right now, if you are a full-time carrier, I'm trying to get this right, so give me a little grace here. If you are a full-time carrier, you are paid for how long your route should take, not for how long it actually takes. But if you are part-time, you can set your own hours. So they can say, hey, I'm working 8 to 4 and then I'm done. And whatever they didn't have time to deliver comes back to the office at the end of the night. I got the cat coming in to say, hey, this is Sassy. She's a pretty good cat. Yeah, Letty, it's, first of all, thank you for this. I am going to keep this as mine. I am going to, some people around here need preparedness on. It's so silly how this is so normal to almost all of us in all of these communities, but there are people who just, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So, I mean, I know I can talk all about permaculture and trees and plants and systems and designs and all this stuff, but some of these people may just need to learn ways of storing their medication and having enough on hand and food and water and some very, very basic skills around the home. So, yeah, for real. And yeah, over on the MeWe group, the whole post office thing, it just never ends. I mean, there was a point where I almost just like gave up, and Dad just kept going to the post office like every other day, and they know him over there, and he's always nice. He's never rude or anything, but I'm sure they got tired of seeing him. But we use the informed delivery app thing where I can see the scans of everything coming in, and it's just the whole it's like, yeah, it's out there floating around somewhere. It just, it really makes me wary about, we kind of do all the bill pay and stuff online, and Angel handles all that. But like, we had to renew our tags recently, and I just drove down to the place and just did it right then and there. I wasn't going to risk the mail and it being late and whatever. So, yeah, there are folks who really think it's all of their stuff that they need is somebody else's problem. And I think if we can figure out as a community how to address that thought alone, maybe folks can make some progress on the preparedness front. I think it's unfortunate that the whole prepper sphere has in some ways it's gotten a bad rap, and we can thank TV shows like Doomsday Preppers and stuff like that for making that worse. Of course, those TV networks know exactly what they're doing. They know people are going to watch stuff like that and think that those people are just weird and crazy and whatnot. And, me, I don't personally care if you want to go dig a bunker and live in there for the rest of your life thinking that the world is falling. I don't care what you do, as long as you're not taking anybody else's stuff or hurting anybody. But I I think what I'm going to try to do as we get into our thaw here next week, hopefully, is I will see how the conversations go on the local groups, and if it's suddenly just like, oh, back to normal, that's going to be my cue that it's time to remind people of the difficulty that they had. And I'm not talking about putting out some kind of grand effort, because I already got way too many irons in the fire. But I think I'll just kind of use my instincts and reach out to those who seem like they may be agreeable, operating with a little bit more common sense. So that's pretty much what I got for you guys tonight. That was just kind of, most of that at the end there was just off the cuff, but that's observed. And I've in a lot of ways, I've had nothing to do but look on my phone and shake my head at people and just be a little bit amazed. So I hope you guys are doing well and staying warm and all that good stuff. I'm going to try real hard to be a little perkier next live stream, not be quite so grumpy and tired. But till then, you guys know where to find me if I can help you with anything, and we'll talk to you next time.